Hello everyone. Today's story is The Two Thieves by Sudha Murthy from the book The Magic Drum. Saranga was a clever minister in the court of King Devaprasanna. Saranga was such a good advisor that none of the neighboring kings could ever succeed in attacking the kingdom. Naturally, they were very jealous of Devaprasanna and his brilliant minister. Saranga was also a great patron of the arts. Many artists, writers, and thinkers gathered in his house. He gave them shelter and the means to work on their art. One day, two strangers appeared at his doorstep. "We have been wandering in many places. We heard you are kind to talented people, so we have come to ask you for shelter," they said. "What are your talents?" asked Saranga. "I can bark like a dog," said one. "My imitation is so good that even real dogs get confused, and my friend here can crow better than a cock." "What have you been doing all this while with these talents?" asked Saranga, amazed. Now the two friends looked embarrassed. Finally they said, "We will be honest. We were thieves and used these talents to confuse the owners of the houses we robbed. Now we have decided to mend our ways and do some honest work. That is why we have come to you." Saranga decided to let the two stay in his house, even though his other guests protested. He let them stay. He felt they were truly repentant and should be given a chance. So the two stayed with him and became a part of his group. Now, Himabindu was a wicked old king of a neighboring kingdom. Several times he had wanted to invade Devaprasanna's kingdom, but had failed miserably because Saranga would always foil his plans. He wanted Saranga to become his minister, so he could easily conquer Devaprasanna's kingdom. One day he sent a letter to Devaprasanna. "I want to honor your minister Saranga. I want him to come to my kingdom and give my ministers some lessons in statecraft. Please send Saranga to my kingdom and allow him to stay here for a few days." Saranga was suspicious when the king informed him about the letter, but Devaprasanna wanted to be on good terms with his neighbors. So he said, "Why don't you go? If you suspect something is wrong, just come back." Saranga now had no choice but to go to Himabindu's court. He took his group of artists and writers with him, as well as the two ex-thieves. Himabindu welcomed Saranga with great respect. Saranga too had come with many gifts for the king, among them a beautiful rare shawl. Finally, the king sat down to talk to him. "Saranga, I know you are the brain behind Devaprasanna's success as a king. You have served him for many years. Why don't you work for me now? I will make you richer than ever. You will be my chief minister." Saranga, who had suspected all along that something like this would happen, had his answer ready. "My family has served King Devaprasanna for many generations. I cannot leave this service. I am sorry." As soon as the words had left his mouth, Himabindu flew into a rage and ordered that Saranga be thrown into prison. When his friends who were waiting in another room heard about this, they were shocked. How could they save their beloved Saranga now? They came up with many plans, none of which could be carried out by a bunch of artists. Finally, one said, Queen Sunmohini is the king's favorite queen. She is beautiful and intelligent. She loves rare art objects, especially shawls. But we came with only one shawl, and Saranga represented it to the king. If only we could get it back. The two former thieves listened to the discussion in silence. After some time, they walked out quietly. They went to the royal chamber where the gifts were piled up. A ferocious looking guard stood at the door and frowned at them. Quickly, they slipped behind a tree, and one of them began barking like a dog. The guard was startled. How could a dog enter the royal palace? Surely, if the king heard the noise it was making, the guard would be out of his job. He rushed off to find the dog, while the other friend went inside and found the shawl. Then they quickly made their way back to the group of friends, who were still deep in discussion. Here is the shawl, they said, giving it to the oldest and wisest person in the group. Now you can present it to the queen. The man took the shawl to the queen, who was delighted with it. What a beautiful design! Such soft wool! How much do you want for this? Saranga's friend bowed low and said, Your Highness, I don't want any money for this. But please request the king to free our dear friend Saranga. The queen agreed. That night, when Himabindu came to have dinner with his favorite queen, she served him the most delicious dishes. He was delighted, and after tucking into a huge dinner, leaned back happily and asked, What is it, my dear? You look worried. Is there anything you desire? Quickly, the queen said, I have heard that a clever minister called Saranga has been imprisoned by you. He is said to be a wise man. Should we treat him like this? Why don't you free him, just for me? The king, already sleepy after his enormous dinner, said, Yes, yes, and ordered Saranga's release. Saranga was greeted by his friends with delight. Then someone said, We should leave the kingdom before the king discovers we stole his shawl and gave it to the queen. Everyone agreed, and quietly the group packed their bags and left the palace. But there was a problem when they reached the city walls. The huge gates were locked. The soldier guarding them said, That is the law. I cannot open them till it is dawn. Saranga and his friends sat down to wait. As the hours passed, they grew more and more nervous. What if the king got to know about the theft before they could escape? Finally, one of the two former thieves got up. He climbed a tree near the soldiers guarding the gate and crowed loudly like a cock. The soldiers jumped up and, thinking it was morning already, rushed to open the gates. Saranga and his group were ready. They left as quickly as they could and reached their own kingdom by early morning. In the meantime, King Himabindu woke up after a long, refreshing sleep and saw his queen dressed in a beautiful sari with an even more exquisite shawl around her shoulders. But why did the shawl look familiar? When he quizzed her, she told him the story of the man who gave it to her as a present and asked for Saranga's release and return. The king now ordered his men to bring him the shawl presented by Saranga, but it was nowhere to be found. Finally, he understood what had happened. He could only smile at the cleverness of Saranga and his friends. It was better to have such clever people as friends than enemies, he decided, and from that day the two kingdoms became friendly neighbors.